Hi, today we're here with Lori Bochner of Bochner Farms. We're back visiting after a couple of years, I think it was, when we saw the garden in all its glory. And today, though, is a new season and new plants. And what are you starting today, Lori?
It is a brand new season. I'm excited to get started with the garden this year. Today, we are sowing Gumfrina.
Nice.
So I have about 6 different varieties of Gumfrina that I am sowing today, and I'm super excited to get it started. We have a lot of seedlings already underway. And things are starting to green up in the garden. So
excellent.
We're getting ready to begin.
Excellent. Well, maybe we should go take a look outside too.
Let's do that.
Great. Lori, the cottage garden looks really great. I mean, I know it's only April, but still, it looks really good.
Yeah, it's early April, but everything is greening up. I was looking at my calendar from last year, and everything is ahead of where it was last spring.
We've had a lot of warm temperatures. So when do you start planning, what you're going to do for the year? I know you have some perennials, but you have a lot of annuals too.
Yeah, I do intentionally mix a lot of annuals in here so I can change things up every year. But I would say I spend most of my winter planning, and I spend a lot of snowy days out here standing around looking at where things are, where color's going to be, to make sure it looks the way I want it to look.
Oh yeah. So what's your color palette this year?
My color palette this year is the same as it was the last 2 years, and that is no color shall be left behind. I always like to mix all the colors. I think I said the exact same thing in the first video that we did with the touring the garden. It'll be the same. I like to just have a riot of color in the garden, but I do like to mix it up so that if you're standing at the entrance walking into the garden and you're looking down that path, it just looks a little different each year.
Nice.
But still, I would say I follow no color palette.
Okay. Well, that's very fun. That's very. And are you trying maybe some new varieties to get that riot of color?
Yes, I like to try new things, again, just so that it looks new and fresh. And so I have several different new flowers planned for this year.
Great.
I have some zinnias that are a different color of zinnia than I have grown before, and I'm going to put some celosia in the garden. And years previous, I would dot a little bit of celosia, but I think I'm going to have more celosia, the plumy kind of wheat.
Oh yeah.
Maybe along the edges a little bit more.
Yeah, add a little spike of color there.
See what that looks like.
That'll be nice. Yeah.
It's fun to experiment.
Great. And then so when it comes to your perennials, do you have some maintenance and things you need to do this time of year? Or?
Yes. So since I do plant so many annuals in here, I do like to keep the perennials in check. So for example, this yarrow has spread out and even grown over to here. I think I'll probably pop this entire one out and then shore up this so that I've got maybe a clump this big instead of a clump this big.
Oh, nice.
And then I have some phlox varieties. It seems like they spread and then some kind of stay more contained. Yeah. I would say that's the same with yarrow too.
Sure.
Some yarrows stay more contained.
I've noticed that with yarrow.
Because these yarrows over here are yarrow gold, and they definitely have stayed in their place.
Yeah.
This I think is like summer sassy something, and it's
going all
wild.
Over.
And now, same thing with this phlox.
Will you take like this clump and put it over in the cut flower garden, or
maybe
just share it with friends?
Our cut flower garden is totally annuals in its production. It's for our U-cuts.
Yeah.
So I don't put any perennials in there.
Okay.
I do have a couple raised beds over there that I have some yarrow in.
Yeah.
So for this, for example, I will either find another spot in my landscape or I will gift it to someone.
Yeah.
Or it will be tossed.
That's fine.
Compost pile it is. So I don't know. I haven't decided yet. We'll see kind of how much I end up with and what I decide to do with it.
That makes sense. And I think you mentioned these little sedums. You're starting from seed.
Yes.
That's really cool.
Yes.
Does it take a long time to germinate, and how were they to start?
I need to look at my notes from last year. I think it probably took about 2 or 3 weeks to germinate. But this was I planted in the first year of the garden. It's a sedum variety called Azoon, I think. It's Aizoon.
Okay.
And it is a beautiful, because it's a little more tender, and it's got beautiful yellow flowers that bloom like in June through early July. So it's different than like your autumn joy sedum that kind of blooms later.
More
this is a little
cover.
earlier, but I love it so much, and it's come back really well.
Yeah.
So I got some more seed that I'm going to plant in my other perennial garden, because
that's great.
I need more of that sedum in my life.
That's really fun. I want to see how that comes along. That'll be neat.
Yeah, it's really pretty.
And then you mentioned something about the tulips. Didn't you have a new idea about the
Yes.
tulips?
So these tulips were planted in the fall of 22. And so they bloomed last year in 23, and they're coming up again. I left the bulbs in. I didn't know. I let the foliage die back, so I wasn't sure if they would come back, but they're coming back really well.
They look really good.
So I think though I tend to like change things in the garden. And so these right now are planted in little clumps, you know, and they're dotted throughout the garden. Yeah. And that'll be 2 years in a row I've had the little clumps. So I think this coming fall, I'm going to tear everything out, and I might do like little like rivers.
Oh yeah.
And have like dig little trenches and just have little rivers running through all the way through, just to give it a little bit different look.
Sure.
So we'll see how that looks. So I've got couple thousand bulbs.
Oh wow.
That we'll be planting in here for next spring.
Were you inspired by anything in particular to do that, or
just my imagination?
Yeah, that's great. That's really cool. Neat idea. I like it.
Yeah, I spend, like I said, a lot of time out here just wandering around and kind of deciding how I want things to look. And so as I was standing here this spring, I'm like, well, kind of bored with the clumps. I think I want to do a little river.
That's nice.
So we'll see how that, you'll have to come out in the spring of 25 and check out what the rivers look like.
It'll be here before we know it.
It will. It will.
So you talked about having daylilies. You have them all. I see you have them in all different beds in the garden. And how do you incorporate those, and maybe even the other perennials? How do you incorporate that with the annuals?
Yeah, so we do have perennials dotted all throughout here, and I take notes throughout the entire growing season just to see how the different daylilies and all the perennials are doing next to each other, because some flowers are bigger and taller and some bloom at different times. And so I take a lot of notes. So based on notes, then this is the time of year that I will start moving things around.
That makes sense.
That will give each flower their opportunity to shine in the garden this year, because some didn't.
Yeah.
So for example, this euphorbia right here.
Oh yeah.
My plan is going to be to plant taller things here. This is going to bloom in June, and it doesn't get hugely tall. So it will get swallowed up.
Yeah.
So I'm going to actually dig this whole thing up.
Yeah.
And I'm going to move it. And then I'll look for a spot. But for example, for this, I'm going to move it right here.
Oh yeah.
Because I've got a euphorbia on this corner.
Yeah.
I'll have another one here. They're going to be on the edge. So they'll be able to see. You'll be able to walk through the arbor and see. And I'll probably plant something smaller here that might bloom a little later after the euphorbia.
Sure.
So that there's always color in this corner.
And oh my gosh, I just have to ask you, are these the same arbors you had last year?
They are.
Like
they aren't covered with hyanthus bean.
Yeah. I know, you couldn't even see them.
Yeah.
That's really cool.
That hyanthus bean is so robust. So we will plant that again this year.
Cool.
And so I grow that from seed.
And
I haven't started the seed yet. I'll start it probably next week or maybe the week after. Usually mid-April I start the seeds. We plant them mid-May. And then by the end of July,
they were just,
they're covered. And then by the end of the season, you can hardly walk
through.
But yeah, another example of things I move around. So this daylily here is called Liquid Lunch, and it is a little daintier. It's got a very big flower. It's called Liquid Lunch because it almost drapes the bloom. It's so pretty. But last year it got swallowed up because I like to plant dahlias in the center.
Oh yeah.
And because the dahlias are taller.
Sure.
And this guy you can barely see it.
Oh yeah.
So I am going to move this guy to one of the edges,
Yeah.
or maybe along the corner,
Oh yeah.
just so that it will have its own place.
Yeah.
But again, I'm making all those notes, and so I noticed, oh my gosh, where did Liquid Lunch go?
Yeah.
Buried under the dahlias. But you know, the garden changes every year, and as the perennials start to mature, you just start to learn what blooms when and how tall.
Yeah, because things don't always grow. It just depends on your soil and your sun and all of that.
Absolutely.
So
and how old they are.
Yeah.
So so some things get trimmed back and moved around, and then some things just need to be in a different spot.
Yeah. Makes sense.
So, but it's fun.
And I think you talked about doing something different with the pergola this year. What?
Yes.
And the containers there.
Yes.
Shall we?
So we have 4 pots at each of the posts. People often ask me, do you want to have a vine growing up here? And I like the fact that I've got something vertical, but also something I can change each year.
Yeah.
So this year, I'm hoping they're going to be gorgeous. I'm going to plant flowers around the outside. It's a salvia and a supertunia that are like a really vivid purplish fuchsia kind of color.
Pretty.
And then on this vine, on this what do you call it, obelisk.
Yeah.
On this obelisk, I'm going to have mandevilla.
Oh,
and it's going to be a
pretty.
white mandevilla, which I think is going to contrast
Yeah.
really cool with that vibrant color at the bottom,
Mm-hmm.
like a white explosion coming out.
Yeah.
And then with the rich color of the cedar, I think it'll look really pretty in
That
here
will
this
be
year. And so when
nice.
you're sitting on the benches, you'll have fuchsia and purple and then white.
Yeah.
So that's my dream
yeah.
anyway. We'll
That'll
see.
be
Hopefully
great.
we can
I
make it
look
happen.
forward to seeing that.
Yeah, she'll have to come back and see once it
Yeah,
gets growing.
Definitely.
But yeah,
definitely.
so that's the plan for these.
Oh, let's walk around and see what else is going on. So we're over here in the cut flower garden. Not a lot going on yet, right?
No, it doesn't look like much now, does it? But all those little baby seedlings that are in the studio right now are going to go in here.
Nice.
So by the first or second week of May, all of these little holes will be filled with little baby flowers.
Nice.
And then by July 1st, this will be a sea of color.
Cool.
So it's kind of hard to imagine how, it's kind of cool actually,
Yeah,
how this
really.
ugly little mess here will be an entire cut flower field that will bloom thousands and thousands and thousands of flowers.
That is so cool.
So it's cool.
Well, I look forward to seeing that. Thanks again for having us out here today in April. Nice day, but chilly, and looking forward to the garden season.
It's all beginning.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm looking forward to it. You'll
Excellent.
have to come back and see once it's in full bloom.
Yeah, we'll plan on it.
Okay, sounds
Thanks,
good.
Lori.
Thank you.